Let's look at this image now, and we'll have a go at rocks and water, and we'll also revisit what we just did with skies and clouds. So this is an image of our lovely Gold Coast skyline in the background, and it's taken from Greenmount. So we're going to have a bit of a practice run at rocks. So with our water, it's very similar to sky, depending on whether you've got any waves, but when it comes to still water, you're putting it in exactly the same as you were putting the sky in. You're rubbing your fingers and picking up that graphite off that sandpaper board, making sure it's got no lumpy bits in it, and you're going to put down a coverage on your paper everywhere where that still water is. And don't worry too much about when you get a few little marks when you're putting down your still water. We can always cover them up with a shadow or a rock or something. We'll find something to cover it up with. So we get that first layer in around our rocks, and we're going to darken that down quite a bit throughout the drawing. Pick up a bit more graphite, make sure there's no lumps, and just run along the top there for the sky. Now see, I was a little bit hasty then, and we got a bit of a streak in there. That's what happens if you don't get rid of those lumps. So, but it's okay. We'll just cover it with some clouds. There's always a way around it when you're drawing. Okay, so let's go back down to where our rocks are. Now we cover our rocks with a layer of 2B graphite, and we want to catch those little bubbles in the paper so we don't press too hard. Just go round and round in circles and get that first layer in and get our first coat on our rocks, and we'll get the shaping in when we go back over it with a darker pencil. It's picking up some nice texture. With our cartridge paper, well, this cartridge paper has a light, fine texture. So when you're looking for your cartridge paper to draw on, make sure that it has a light, fine texture so that you can pick up those bubbles. Now I'll just leave those two. I'll leave the rest for now. I'll just go over these ones so I can show you what we're doing. And then I'll pick up my 8B pencil, and down along the waterline, it's slightly darker, just to give it some shape. So using the 8B pencil, it's a softer graphite, and it will pick up the bubbles still give you that texture without having to press too hard. Now we're going to go with the texture of the rocks, the lines going down like that, so we can create a bit of character in our rock. And if you want to create a crack or a little hole, just get the point and twist it like that. And put a little bit more dark in there to create a crevice. Go along to our next one. Remember to look at where your light is coming from, and where the light source comes from, you stay light on that side, dark on that side, as you can see with this next one that we're going to do here. I'm putting another layer on with my 8B pencil. And I'm going to go slightly darker on this background rock so that it is separated from the one in front. Okay, now we've got a little bit more dark up here. Okay, now we get our 2B again. We go to our next rock. Now it's quite dark on the side that's not facing the sun. So we're going to get a nice layer of texture on that side, and then we'll do it a slightly lighter on the sunny side. Then get your 8B. It's quite dark in there. We need to press quite hard. All of this light and shadow that you're creating is what makes your drawings look three-dimensional. Without that light and shadow, there is no dimension to it. And a few little crevices down there, like that. And a bit of dark down near the waterline. If we were doing this in colour, we'd be putting our green moss on the top of the rocks, but this is black and white, so we just keep it on that tonal scale. Alright, now the water. This is where your stub comes in handy. You can rub it on your graphite on the sandpaper block and pick it up on the end, and then use that as a little drawing tool, but it comes out very smooth. You don't have texture. So underneath we've got the sand, a little pattern in the sand underneath the water. We're just going to do that very softly. So it gives a slight effect underneath that still water. Then what I might do is I might get a little bit more graphite, rub and rub and rub and rub and rub until it's into your fingers, and then put another layer over the top so it just shows up a little more. And then we can use a little bit of it for our shadow from our rock here, and then darken that down with our stub. I find sometimes with this it's good to get a little bit of the graphite on the side of your little finger so that you can get into smaller places, and then rub it in like that. Then we'll get a bit of shadow. Now we're getting a little bit of a stronger shadow, which is what we were after. Takes too long to build it up the other way. Okay, then you get your rubber, which is very dirty, so what we might do is we might cut a piece off. That's where our cutting mat comes in handy. Slice the end off that. So we've got a nice clean edge on our rubber. Take that off. Then we can create some light in our water by rubbing a few little lines through it. So that it looks reflective. Make sure your lines are in straight, horizontal, because otherwise it will look strange and your water will look like it's running down the hill. Okay, now we'll move up to our ocean. Oh, sorry. If we want to create a wave in there, get some of that graphite in, just to give you your water there, like that. And then use your stub to put your wave in. Darken it down. Then get your trusty electric rubber. And create the white water on the wave, and then maybe a few little bits coming in like that. Brush it carefully with the side of your hand, not your fingers, because you'll end up with smudges all over it. And then again use your stub to get in under those little bits of white water that you've taken out with your electric rubber, and create little shore waves. So it's important when you're doing a drawing to be patient with it and build up your layers. So this is just the beginnings of the drawing. So what I would do then is, now I would start going, right, it needs to be a little bit darker in here. There needs to be like very little light in there. So I'm going to build that up, make it a bit darker, and then even build some of that darkness out into the water reflection. Now, as you can see, that pencil is picking up texture, so I need to get my stub and I need to rub out that texture so it does look like a shadow in the water. So you slowly build up your layers, working with your image as a reference. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. You can take out what you want. You can leave in what you want. It's entirely up to you. But you do need to build the layers of graphite and slowly build the whole drawing up until you're satisfied. So you can build up the next little rock and the next little rock, and then build all of your shadows and your reflections in the water And remember that contrast is what makes your drawings look good. Contrast between light and dark. So it's important that you have little areas like this where you've built up the dark against the light of the water. Build up the dark underneath the waves against the light of the fluffy white water on top. And do that all over your drawing. And get in all the details. And just remember to keep that light source consistent. Figure out where your light's coming from. Put a little arrow there if it helps you, and keep that light source consistent. That side's going to be darker, that side's going to be lighter. And just keep building up. And take your time.